Today, I am speaking with Lonnie of the YouTube channel Funarios. Funarios is an internet comedian creating original videos and sketches. Lonnie's channel currently sits at 310,000 subscribers and over 89 million total channel views. This being the Video Creator Show, we're going to talk about how he's been doing it for over 10 years, all the cool behind the scenes stuff, and yeah, let's just jump into it. Lonnie, so you've been doing this for about a decade, correct? Why did you get into this, and how has this whole weird YouTube journey been for you overall?
So I got into it because around the time that I don't know if you remember Dave Chappelle when he had left and went to Africa, the speculated $55 million he left his show. So for whatever reason, I thought that was the universe's calling to tell me that like there needed to be a space filled for like sketch comedy. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this thing. And I originally had a TV show deal through my school's program that I was going to put them on TV. But then I was also introduced to the YouTube thing. And I was like, okay, I can do a little more. I had a little more flexibility on the internet than I could on TV. You know, you can't say certain words and all that stuff. But I just didn't have time for that. So I was like, okay, let me go over to the internet. Lo and behold, there was a whole community of sketch comedy and other people who were doing the same thing that I had sought out to do. So it's like, oh, there's a whole community in this. So, just learning and then social media changing, I just got more and more into it and was producing my own videos and writing scripts and doing this and going to college. And it's been a long journey, for sure. For sure. It's been rough.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I totally get it. I've been on YouTube for about 7 years as well. It can be super weird, like being on camera, kind of organizing everything behind the scenes, making it all work, trying to make sure it's monetized properly. So like when you did start, I assume you've kind of had a progression of things over the years. I mean, watching your earlier videos, clearly your more recent videos, the video production is really good. I mean, your sound is great. It visually looks fantastic. You clearly have high quality cameras. Do you have a background in video production? Are you all self-taught? I know you said you had a TV show to start all this. So can you tell us about your background?
So, in high school, I was actually a TV show host and anchor, and so that's where I learned all of my skills, like the basics of editing, being a news reporter, script writing, shooting, cameras, this and all of that. So that's where I got majority of my knowledge from. And then once I got to college, I took a few classes here and there, but majority of my stuff is self-taught. I watched a lot of behind the scenes of movies. I would do a lot of research. I used to be really into like technology and stuff. So like even as a kid, every Sunday when Best Buy's like weekly ads would come out and you'd get the Sunday newspaper. This is way back. Obviously everything's digital now, but I would go through it and I would look at the newest products. I would compare them and give my mom like a kind of like, oh, we should get this because like this is like a better version of like this and like it'll. So I kind of had that going into like cameras and stuff, and I always had that thirst for like wanting the best and doing the research. So that kind of transferred over as well. But most of the stuff has been, it was just those building blocks that were found in high school that I started with, and then just kind of built on that. Because once you know the basics, you can kind of pretty much do anything from there. It's just knowing those basics. So yeah. So a little bit
Yeah.
self-taught, but I didn't go to school for it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm kind of the same way with editing. I'm also all self-taught, and I totally agree with the once you know the basics, you can kind of just go from there. Especially with YouTube, it's such a free-flowing platform. If it's not cinematic Hollywood quality editing, that's okay.
Yeah.
So you can kind of start wherever you're comfortable and then evolve from there. So one thing I noticed about your channel, like you do Q&A live streams, or you do live streams, and they get very good views, which always tells me that you have a pretty active community. Like, people are interested in you as a personality. There are some channels where it's kind of like faceless, voiceless, or rather faceless, And people kind of just watch it for the content. They're not necessarily watching for the personality or the person behind it. I think with your channel, that isn't really the case. Can you talk about like how you've been able to build a community on YouTube? Because having a tight knit community like that is very important for the health of a channel.
Um, it's really been a huge blessing. Like, it wasn't something that I sought out to do necessarily. It kind of just organically happened. I always believe that you should give your viewers something of value, like just something that, like, when they walk away from it, it kind of like, I won't, for lack of a better word, it haunts them. Meaning, like, it's just something that just stays on their mind, and they're just like, they just like, oh, I really like what he did, or this video really made an impression on them. So anything I do, even when I drop my merch or anything like that, it was like I always wanted to give my fans or the viewers an experience. Like, I always like I going to the website, I wanted it to be like, oh, this is not just a simple Shopify put together. Like, the first website, it was like, no, it's like a story about my life. And then it's like, all right, the shirts, and the shirts literally had, they were named after my skits that I was making. So, whatever skit that they resonated with, it was kind of like, that. So, it was just, and just being organic and kind of just like being me. Also, like, my language, the way I talk, it was the thing that like people gravitated toward. If I say this funny, like "shorty cheeked up," like that's just something that they take and now they say, and it's like,
Uh huh.
it's like a, it's like, it's kind of like a, it's kind of like how you identify different fan bases. But like, if I always wanted, if like one of my viewers, like, they went and like said this, then they would be like, oh, like, you watch comedian Lonnie because like he talks like that. So that's been it. Now it's more intentional to do that, but starting out, it just happened organically, and then I just realized, like, wow, like, people really rock with me, and they really love what I'm doing, and I'm adding value to their lives. So
So you're, excuse me. So you were pretty much creating videos and expressing yourself how you wanted to, and then you sort of accumulated a community of people who were just interested in you, and like you weren't really putting on a facade, and I think that always helps with like building an audience.
hmm
You kind of end up attracting people who are legitimately interested in you and how you express yourself, as opposed to this kind of like artificial version of yourself.
yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. And with it's funny how you see different things evolve. So even if you look at like movie stars back from, like, let's just say like the 80s on to like maybe early 2000s, like, we didn't know a lot about them. We didn't know these people personality. We just knew their on-screen character in which they played. And then, like, you hear stories like some people meet these people and they're nothing like what they played, but it's because they're obviously playing a role. But with YouTube now, it's kind of like a in-depth look at somebody's life, and like you actually get to know the real person as opposed to the character that they're portraying on screen. So it's kind of like a mix of that, which is also a good thing and a bad thing. It can we've seen it numerous times. Like, it can hurt you or it can help you. So just all depends on how you use it, I guess. But it's interesting to see that progression of things.
Yeah, for real. And I see, like, in your description, you have a mycommunity.com link. So is this kind of like the main place where you're able to interact with your fans? Like, what kind of stuff do you do on there?
So that's like a text app where I can basically literally text my fans, and if I drop a video, I can send them a link, and or if they like the skit, they can hit me right there, and I can reply, and yo, yeah, thank you, have conversations, whatever it may be. So that was something that I definitely wanted to be more intentional with, and just it's hard to keep up with because it's a lot. It's like getting like more than 1,500 text messages from people, like,
Oh my god.
so it's like, how do you respond to everybody? You want to try to do the best, but it's a lot for sure. But
Well,
it means a lot too.
yeah, I was kind of wondering about that. Like, you had that number on there, so you are manually responding to all
hmm
these text messages. There
hmm
isn't some like bot doing it for
Nope,
you.
nope, nope, nope. That is me. That is real life me. Yes.
Dang. So have you noticed like more interaction from your community from that? Like, how do you feel like that has helped your channel, or like, yeah, I'm just curious about the results from that.
um, it. helps for sure, and it's a thing that I need to get back onto. Just in the last year or so, I've just been trying to like take a different approach to YouTube, so it's kind of been on the back burner. But when I was actively using it, it was like instant results on skits. You know, it's like, yo, I really loved it. Yo, you should do this. Like giving ideas right there. So even helping for the like the next series or the next part, it's just like it's like almost instant feedback. Besides the YouTube comments, because not a lot of people actually comment as much as I would like them to and engage with it. But through text message, it's kind of like an extra thing of like I get to see immediately. You know.
And would you ever consider making a Discord server or anything like that?
So I've been like hearing about like Discord, like I'm not really sure what it is yet. So I guess I would need to know what it is first, but probably, I mean, it sounds like it could be something that, also helps. I wasn't really aware of what it actually was, so I didn't do one.
Sure. So Discord, it's basically like it's an app, and it's a place where it's very easy to have a community. So a Discord server is like a place where you can design how people interact with each other. You can have different chat rooms, different voice chat rooms. You can stream on there. And so one channel I helped build, Bonsai Pop, is an anime channel. It has a very large community that is centered around their Discord server. A lot of that involves, the personality of Bonsai Pop kind of being in the server, interacting with fans, kind of either over chat or voice messages. Usually there's events and stuff, so you can kind of unplug and then come back in during certain times, so you're not like totally overwhelmed by having to interact with people all the time. But I would highly recommend Discord for like having a community, if that is a way that you want to run your channel. Obviously, that is its own time commitment, and everybody runs their channel differently. But I would certainly recommend it, especially if you kind of have a Patreon where people pay like a couple dollars a month in order to get access to the community. That way, you kind of filter out people who are just kind of spilling in there for free.
Okay.
I've had a Discord server where people didn't have to pay to get in, and you end up with a lot of people who you may not want in there. So,
Gotcha.
word of
Okay.
the wise there.
Okay. Okay. I'll definitely keep that in mind.
Yeah, so I just kind of wanted to mention that. Discord's great. And so another thing I noticed that I was really impressed by, your Instagram. I mean, you have 125,000 followers on there. It's kind of rare, I find, where a YouTube channel is obviously doing well, but then you have other social media platforms that are really taking off as well. So, like, how did you grow your Instagram?
That was literally me doing social media content. And when I say social media, like the Instagram, the TikTok, that kind of stuff. So I was doing short form videos as well as the long form videos, which it was a lot. It was a bit tiring. So a lot of that came from that. And even in the 10 years of me doing content creation, it's been like, okay, did YouTube for a little bit, then would like Facebook release videos or something like that. So then I would put my attention over there and then do a little bit of Vine, a little bit of Instagram, and then it kind of all rose. So, and in every medium, I have like at least a viral video in everyone. So Vine, I had a few viral videos. Instagram had a few. YouTube is the only one I still have yet to like get a true like viral video, but it's coming. It's coming. But yeah, it was just really come from spreading my attention to all of the platforms as opposed to focusing on one, in which I'm more focused on now, just growing the YouTube.
Like, is there a particular reason you're focusing on YouTube as opposed to like the other platforms?
Um, YouTube has always been the thing that like has never abandoned me. Like after all the other apps and their algorithms have done whatever and either shadow banned or done this or removed posts, like YouTube has always been the one that like I've always come back to. But it's also held the most weight. Even when you talk to um, influencers, like you may have, let's say, an influencer with 1 million on Instagram doesn't have the same weight as a YouTuber with 1 million. Like a YouTuber with 1 million, you're just looked at as higher. Like it's it's like a higher ranking thing, but that's also because of how hard it is to grow a YouTube to a million. It's easier now because you have shorts, but it's just always looked at differently. So I always liked it, but I liked the direction that YouTube was going in as well. YouTube was more creator based. They paid attention to their creators, but also the creators on there were like pushing forward the culture of content creators more than any other platform, more than the Instagram, more than the TikTok, and those kind of things. So I always just preferred YouTube, and my art was better seen on YouTube because I always wanted to make movies and TV shows. And like, not that you can't do it on Instagram, it's just not, Instagram's not built for that. Facebook is not
Hmm.
necessarily built for that. But YouTube is this thing, it's the video library, and I feel like the future of YouTube is going to be bigger than we know. Like, it's still early. Like, it's very like, content creation is still an early thing of like people making money and making a living off of it. But I think YouTube will always be at the forefront of that. Like, it'll always hold the most weight, and it
I
has the
agree.
most users too.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a more versatile platform for sure. Even just Instagram and TikTok, you pretty much have to post in vertical video or like 4:3 video,
Exactly.
and that in and of itself is very limiting. Whereas YouTube, and as you mentioned, like they added shorts, so now you get vertical video with the kind of virality that comes with that, as well as the option to just post more kind of cinematic, widescreen HD content.
Hmm.
And again, like you have some very good cinematography, some high quality cameras and sound, and I clearly YouTube is the best way to kind of feature that. And yeah, one thing that is important to note about YouTube as well is it seems to be the easiest platform to monetize on. Would you say that's been your experience?
Um, yeah, let me see. YouTube. I would say if I had to rank them, I would say TikTok actually, then YouTube. But
Hmm.
only because TikTok is a more recent thing. It because it's quicker to amass a following on TikTok and meet the requirements than YouTube. But YouTube is definitely out of the rest of them. YouTube is would be number one if TikTok wasn't a thing. Because Instagram, it's like every other account. Like, you can't decide who gets monetized. Like, I know some friends that have been making videos for forever on there, but I got monetized before them on there. Or Facebook was the same kind of, their creator thing, studio and stuff isn't the greatest. So I would definitely say YouTube would be number one if it wasn't for TikTok. But but YouTube is definitely up there for sure as the top.
Hmm.
It's
So,
easy.
like, how do you monetize on TikTok versus YouTube? Because TikTok seems like a pretty different environment. I've heard that it is a little more complicated on TikTok, but as you said, it is easier to amass a following. There's a lot more organic growth on
Hmm.
TikTok, I've noticed. So, like, once you do accumulate a following, how do you go about monetizing on TikTok?
Once you meet the requirements, it's really just filling out the information, and then you just drop videos. I forget the requirements because I've been monetized for so long on a lot of these platforms, and then the criteria changes, every now and then, so I'm not exactly sure what is the criteria for TikTok, but I think it's a certain amount of followers, or views. It's either followers or views that you have to get in a certain time, or just get overtime, not in a certain time. I'm not sure what it is though, but I know YouTube is definitely, you have to get the 3,000 subs, and then you have to get the 1,000 watch hour. Wait, no, it's more than
I
that.
think it's 4,000 hours of
4,000,
watch time
yeah,
on YouTube
yeah.
and 1,000
That's
subscribers.
it. So I flipped the numbers around. So 1,000 subscribers and then 4,000 watch hours. But like, those watch hours, it like takes a while to get those watch hours. Like, especially
Hmm.
if you're doing long form content, like, it may eat it up, but that's like depending on if you go viral in that long form content or if you have a good streak. But like, it takes a while. Like, I even have a podcast channel myself that like, we're still like a few views away from like getting that full monetization. But it's definitely worth it though, because they take care of their creators more. The creator studio is amazing, and just but I think it's to weed out, those who aren't really serious about it, and then you don't have all this, confusion in there. But definitely love the YouTube Creator Studio and
Yeah,
the
it is
Monetization.
pretty great. They have a lot of good analytics on there and
Hmm.
important information.
For sure, for sure.
So, can you talk about how you've been monetizing on YouTube? Because, the business aspect of this is obviously super important. You want to pay your bills and not be
Hmm.
dropping a bunch of money trying to make this channel work. So, having the channel be self sustaining, of course, is a big part of probably being able to do this for 10 years. So, I know you have merch, surely you have ads. And
Hmm.
so, can you just tell us about how you've made money over the years?
So in the last, I've been monetized for like at least 8 of the 10, 11 years I've been doing this. But actually making sustainable money and actually able to like pay bills and stuff like that has been the last 3 to 4 years ish. But merch, like you said, that at one point that was like at least that was like a third of my income, merch actually.
Hmm.
But so the merch, the ads, I don't really like to do brand deals and stuff like that, but I've done a few of those. I've done like a liquor company. I've done like the Blue Chew. Um, um, done a few like a card game, um, and things like that. But the majority of the money definitely comes from the AdSense, and that's per you know the amount of views you get. That's been how I've made money the most is from the AdSense.
And so I noticed like your content, it can be, I don't want to say like on the edgier side, but you
Hmm.
have like jokes about sex and
Hmm.
things like that. Has that affected monetization? Are there ways that you've gotten around that, or do you just kind of post whatever you want and not worry about it too much?
Um, it's funny because like there's been periods where like all of my videos were yellow. Like and yellow meaning
Yeah.
that limited monetization. And then you kind of get smarter and you're like, okay, I got to do this a little different. I can't attack it how I want to, no matter how I feel about it. Like I feel like I should be able to discuss this. It's still somebody else's platform. They have guidelines, they have rules that you have to follow. Um, so now it's been more of a thing of like me and my friend, like we're testing out videos and like, okay, well, we know that we can't say this word, but we got to come up with another word. But that also helps our community because it helps us create our own language, and only my followers kind of understand what I'm talking about. Like you can say it and it's just implied. They know it. Like you don't have to like overly do this or overly do that. Even as far as like curse words, like at one point in time, I was just like, no, curse words are funny. But then I'm also like, mm, you can probably find a way to be funny without the curse words or just use bleeps. So it's like you go through trial and error of trying to figure it out. Um, but now I kind of got it down for the most part of like how to get around it. But also I understand that like some things like you can appeal them, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to breach their guidelines. So I just kind of know now. But it's trial and error. It's all trial and error.
And that is kind of one of the important reasons for having merch or brand deals. I know you're not the biggest fan of brand deals, but like when you have other ways to monetize, then you don't have to worry so much about swearing or being edgy or whatever you want to call it,
Hmm.
because you have these other avenues that kind of fill in the gaps, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like, so can you talk about how you built your merch line and how you were able to make that a third of your income?
Um, the merch, and enough creators don't talk about this enough, but merch is probably one of the hardest things to successfully do, time after time as an influencer. And it's only because you're in a whole new world of like things like products and what do I sell them? What do I do? This quality of shirts, like how do I get this mass printed? How do I know? Like it's a whole nother business that you have to learn while keeping your YouTube channel going at the same time. Because all this really is just like steam. It's just like a big ball rolling down the hill, and then as you catch some momentum with videos, then like you introduce some more snow, and then the ball gets bigger, and then here comes the merge, and it's all this stuff. But it's very hard to do. It took me a while. It wasn't something that I just did overnight, because my first merch drop, I actually made all of my shirts myself. Like I made every piece of merch myself. So just trying out different things. You try to watch the blogs or the vlogs of different apparel companies. It's like it's a nightmare. But if you have some sense of fashion and you have the hungriness to figure it out, you will figure it out. But with me personally, I always wanted it to be a value. So when I was even shopping for shirts, it was like it has to be the best quality shirt. I don't care if it costs me $5 per shirt to get it. Like I'm going to get it for them so that they have this shirt that lasts forever. But also you have to find your right price point. It's like so much stuff, because like you have to find your right price point, because like you have the Logan Pauls who you hear, and they like made $36 million off of merch, and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I just want like 10% of that. I don't even need the whole 36 million. I just want 10% of that. But in that, that's also understanding that Logan Paul has more resources than most YouTubers, so he can delegate more. Whereas somebody like me starting out the first time, I was doing all this myself. And it also is harder when you don't have a community around you of people who also are doing it. So I had to go outside of like my friends and other people, because most of my friends, they work regular jobs. So I had to like search for this knowledge even harder of like, how do you do this? How do you find merch? How do you find the screen printer? How do you do the, and luckily I had some knowledge because I wanted to open a t-shirt business, so I actually bought all the equipment beforehand, and it just so happened to work out for me. So, just having that knowledge, it helped me. But it's one of those things you definitely have to do your research, and you have to like be on it. But merch is a very like it can sustain you for a good little while if you do it correctly.
Mm-hmm. So, how did you find the merch company that you wanted to work with? So, you have Fonarios.tv, so that's a custom URL. Like when I did merch, I think we used two different companies kind of over the
Hmm.
years. One was Pixel Empire, the other I think was just Teespring. So those are kind of like standard companies that help you with it. So, what company do you use, and like how did you? I know you had these factors, like you wanted it to be high quality and a decent price. Like, can you tell us about that process in more detail?
So the first merch drop, I did it all myself. So I literally just ordered shirts from a wholesaler and had them sent and did it myself. The second time, I was like, I only made like maybe 150 shirts the first one, and I was like, yeah, this took too much time. I'm never doing this again.
Mm-hmm.
Then I found my somebody I grew up with. His mother owned a shop where they make funeral flyers and things like that, but she also did T-shirts. So I was like, okay, let me go and do business with her, and so she did my second drop, and we did the whole process. But then I found out like that's when more time takes up, because like communication. She was in my hometown, so I was in Atlanta. It wasn't like I could go and sit down and have this all figured out. It was like through email, but you got to know wording, you got to know all of this stuff. But that's how I found the second one, and then I finally found somebody in Atlanta, which was able to do it. But that came from I hired somebody else to do my merch and take care of it, and they put me on to this company that found it. But I watched tons of interviews of other influencers talking about merch, and anytime they would say something or a name, I was Googling it, and I was like, okay, and I would hit up that company if they would ever mention the company, or they would like use certain words, and I would search that, and that's how I would stumble upon screen printing businesses or these companies and that, and then I would just build the uh, the terminology. That's all it is. Once you know the terminology, then you know what to search. But when you're in a new industry, you don't know what terms they use. So once you find that, that will help you find screen printers or whoever does merch. And then also, I connected with some other YouTubers finally. And
So you mentioned terminology. What terminology would you recommend people really understand when they are trying to build a merch line? So somebody who they don't know anything, they want to start a merch line for their channel. Like, what should they be Googling? Like, what are the most important keywords you think?
If you're gonna, most people starting out, I would say screen printing, t-shirt screen printing is a huge one. That's also a very general one. Vinyl, you have direct to garment, um, screen printing, direct to garment, vinyl. There's one more that I'm missing, and it might come to me. But vinyl is basically like imagine like a bumper sticker or like imagine a sticker that's heat pressed onto the shirt. So this is vinyl.
Hmm.
It has a feel to it. It's like glued onto the shirt. Now direct to garment is more it's sewn into the fabric of it. And it's a process with like ink and all that other stuff. And even screen printing is also ink that's in more so interlaced into the shirt. But those are like some terms that I know. Samples, they'll like you'll ask for samples. I'm trying to think. I even went through like Alibaba a few times to get like some specialty products, and um, you gotta like it's just so much. You gotta know your dimensions of how much you want, how big you want a logo to be, how you want it to sit. So always know know your measurements. You got to know your measurements. Um, but those three will kind of get you started in it. The direct to garment, the vinyl, and screen printing. Those are like the entry level in there. I'm trying to think of some other
Mm-hmm.
words that like
Well, so
help.
why would you choose one of the?
Embroidery too.
Oh, embroidery.
Embroidery versus embroidery. Now that's like if something's sewn in. So like if I had a hat on, it would like the emblem sewn into it as opposed to a vinyl where it's just glued on. Now embroidery lasts longer, but it costs more because of the process. But yeah, those are some terms.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so embroidery lasts longer, but it tends to be a bit more expensive because it's sewn right
Hmm.
onto the garment. But like as far as vinyl versus direct to garment, like is there one reason you would choose one over the other? You said the shirt you're wearing right now, which is of course your own merch, is vinyl. So why did you choose vinyl for your logo instead of something else?
Well, I chose vinyl because it was the cheapest option for me at the time, and I had all of the equipment for vinyl. Now vinyl you can do with a simple iron. Like you don't need a whole heat press machine. But once you get up into the other machines, it's a little more costly. Like the direct garment, those are more costly, and I just don't recommend starting there because if you can learn the basics first and then build on to the knowledge, so go from vinyl and on up, you'll understand the differences. But some things, some designs you can't do because of vinyl. Like there's limits in all of the designs. Let me say that. So screen printing, you can do multiple colors, but the process is different than vinyl. Now vinyl, you can do multiple colors, but you really, unless you're an expert, you can only limit yourself to about maybe two, three colors with vinyl.
Hmm.
But like if there's a like this print has the different colors in it, so this is just one print. But like if I wanted to like have a red F and then green and then blue, I can't do it because I'm limited by the vinyl. But direct to garment, I can more so do it because of the process is different. So it really just depends on your colors. Um, like, is it a simple black and white shirt? Is it colorful like this? Is it something different? That really determines the differences in. But screen printing allows you more stuff. So you see like the graphic tees that are like it might be like a comic book. Like you see the comic book graphic tees.
Mm-hmm.
Those are more than likely screen printing, possibly direct garment, but I think screen printing is the way that they go about those kind of shirts because it's such a complex design. But if it was a simple like a Nike Just Do It, it's more than likely just a vinyl, just because it's a simple, basic one color.
I got you. All right, so
Yeah.
let's say you've designed your merch, you're happy with it, you're ready to show it to the world. once you got to that point, how did you go about pitching it to your audience and getting them from YouTube to your website?
Mm, I was getting asked about merch a lot before I even dropped it, and they were like, "Yo, like you have T-shirts or something? We'd love to support." And then I finally dropped it, but I would do it in videos. Like I would build it up, and I set a release date. Um, I would wear it. I would wear all the shirts in my videos. Did some Had some friends who did some promotion for me. Just just like whether they were posting it or they were wearing it or things like that. But I kind of just built a little bit of hype around it, and then at the time I was getting a lot of views and a lot of traction. So when the date came, it was just like a everybody like flocked to it, And but I think it's because I gave them value before I ever sold them anything that they were ready for it. They were like, yeah, like we gonna go. And I had sold out in the first 24 hours, both times that I
Dang.
had dropped my merch. So it was like overwhelming. It was like, oh wow. But it's a very scary feeling because you're like, like, what if this goes wrong? What if nobody wants it? What if the prices are too high? What if? And then like all those things were answered like within minutes because they were just like, no, like we are here and like but you also have to know your fan base too. Like you just have to know like who they are, like what they look like, and what they're looking for. So it's a lot more behind it, but my first thing was always just give them value. And even like people like Gary Vee talks about that, like give somebody value up front um and then they'll, you know, hit you on the back end or, they may purchase something from you. So that's kind of how I went about it.
Hmm. So, like, as far as giving them value, do you feel like that was just a matter of posting videos that you thought were funny and entertaining? Was there like more to it than that?
It was more so the consistency of it, but also a lot of my traction came during COVID. So a lot of people, it was just dark times. Everybody was in the house, but a lot of people were telling me like, "Yo, these videos have like gotten me through, some rough times. Like I lost my mother, I lost this person, and I wasn't doing anything astronomical. Like it wasn't like I was doing anything crazy, but it was just the fact that I was providing them a laugh in such a
Mm.
dark time. But I wasn't harping on the stuff. Like I wasn't harping on COVID. I wasn't reminding them of that. Like I always had a rule, like well, not a rule, but whenever you came to my channel, I wanted you to forget about whatever problems you had in that 5, 6 minutes or whatever it was. I wanted you to literally just immerse yourself in my world and just like forget that anything else ever existed. But once you come out of it, of course you're gonna you're gonna be faced with those problems. But that those few moments of taking you out of it just meant so much to you. So that was like always like key for me. And then just being consistent with that. So not just okay, drop a video this week and then 2 weeks go by and I don't drop anything. It was like consistently doing it and consistently giving them interesting situations and knowing what they like. Like my fan base loves good looking women. I mean,
Yeah, who doesn't?
we just all love attractive people. Like we all love attractive people, whether it's
Beautiful
women,
people are nice.
whatever you like. Yeah. So it's like it was like, okay, know this. Okay. Always have good looking women in there. Cool. So if you don't come for a laugh, you come because the woman looks good. But I know that about my fan base, and it's like I'm not sitting here trying to deny you of this. I'm like, no, I'm gonna give you this. I'm gonna deliver on this every time. So just knowing that and hitting that every time, I think is kind of a recipe that worked for me. And everybody's different because there's channels where there's no good looking person, but they add a different sort of value. I
Hmm.
just know that that's mine.
Sure, it's one of them for sure. And
Hmm.
I like what you said about giving people an escape from their problems for however long the video happens to be. I think there's a lot of people who they're trying to make it on YouTube and they are trying really hard to follow trends. They're not
Hmm.
necessarily trying to create a world of their own that people can get immersed in. They're, like with the COVID example, it would have been easy to have like top 5 things people say during COVID, like kind of hitting those trends and those notes that are likely to do well, but they may not be true to yourself or something like that. So I think the fact that you did create your own world on your channel was really helpful for I mean, not just building a fan base and being entertaining, but also for your merchandise as well, because that makes people feel like they know you as opposed to, again, like this kind of artificial version of you.
Yeah. And even like I had to realize this about myself. Like I'm a very like just comedic person. Like I can be watching a movie and it could be a serious movie, and in the middle of the movie I'd be like, it'd be so funny if like instead of going to that door he went to this door and like hit his head. Or like whatever. It can be anything. But like my mind always will try to insert comedy into everything. So like that's just how I just like, all right, so let me just like make my version of this. Or let me put like I had that idea, now it's spun into a whole series of things. So I'm like trying to figure out how, all right, how can I make this same situation that this serious movie has done, but put it in a skit, or just make fun of this thing, or kind of parody it in some sense. So I think that's also been like kind of like a gift of mine, just being able to do that, but understanding that like I can make this art as well, but just make this comedy portion of it. Like, it's
No,
kind of
I know exactly what you mean. Like my brain kind of works in a similar way. I'll just be doing whatever it is I'm doing, and then I'll just kind of have these ideas. Like, wouldn't it be funny if, like, oh, that would be hilarious. These kind of like weird daydreams or something that
interesting.
ended up being useful for creating videos or what have you. I think
Yep.
there's like a process and a learned skill that comes with taking these ideas that pop into your head and then putting them into a video or whatever it is that you're creating. Was that
Yeah.
like a challenge for you at all to kind of get the ideas from your head into something more concrete in the beginning, or were you always kind of like somebody who was good at making that happen?
Um, I knew it was some things were challenging, but then I was able to learn from like other things. I think the biggest impact on me that helped was TikTok. Seeing how people would make situations in TikTok, but it's still like you understood it. Like they weren't, this is before TikTok even had the green screen, but like, just like, oh, how it is in court. And them not being in court, but you still understand the context of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, oh, okay. Like, so there is a way to get it done. And then me taking that to another medium, then I put myself in a courtroom on a green screen, and now I'm having a court session. So it was like being able to just see how I can get this message to people and them still to relate to it. It was a challenge at first, but TikTok really showed me how to do it in my own way. So, and that's also important too. I think creators have to like understand what's going on in just all mediums of all other social platforms, and just like what videos work over here and what videos work over there, because you can take elements from those and put them into your own videos. So that I definitely have to attribute to like the single great thing, but it was challenging at first. But then I kind of got a little more creative, and then I start seeing more behind the scenes of like when you watch some of these movies, you're like, oh, this is fake. Like this world is fake. Like this, they have this thing that looks like a rock, but it's actually not a rock. It's just like a piece of whatever. So you start to learn these tricks to like how to make something look like something else on camera, and then you look back and you're like, oh, so yeah, maybe if we just make a little bit more of these, now it looks like I'm actually in the mountains, or what. It can be
Mm-hmm.
anything. If you could take a like 3 trees, if you shoot it the right way, you can make it look like you're in a forest. Granted, you're not in the forest, but you can make it look like that. So once you understand how to do the different things, and just also collaborating with other people um, who have the insight of that, it helps. And I always was a person, I collected props. Like I would always just like, yeah, I'm gonna save that because I might need that. And then like slowly, I would like use all of these props, and then I would build worlds, like small worlds in these skits. And I'm like, oh, I was able to get away with that. Now, what if we like were to do a whole movie like this? Like, what would that look like? And then you start, problem solving, because that's all that filmmaking is problem solving. You created the problem because you wrote this script, and now you have to
Uh-huh.
solve it.
Right. So it sounds like you'd recommend TikTok as like a good platform for beginners of somebody who's not used to taking ideas in their head and putting them into video form. Do you feel like that's because TikTok is shorter form, that it's kind of lower pressure or something? Maybe people have higher expectations on YouTube. Like, why do you think TikTok specifically is good for beginners?
Um, well, I think it's. I don't think TikTok is good for beginners. I think YouTube is also good for beginners. I think just doing it is good for beginners.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people do a lot of research and they want to like. I hear plenty of people that say they want to start a YouTube channel. The only thing I can tell them is to do it, because it's like so much you learn by just doing it. Like you can read as many blogs as you want, you can read as many pages, you can see all of this, but until you do it, it's hard to like wrap your mind around these things. So I'm just like, okay, do it. Like, don't overthink it, because the minute you overthink it, like, overthinking has never got me anywhere. Let me just say it like that. Any video I've overthought, like it didn't do good. But when the simple videos, and I just did it, or I just executed it and just kept it moving, it worked. And even videos I thought were terrible, they did better than I expected. So I think any platform is good for a beginner. It's just literally, the thing is just do it. Just start wherever you are. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you don't have the best camera. Literally, just start. Shoot something. Try to edit it. Start, and then just keep doing it. Like, we live in like, I think it's kind of hard for a lot of people, because we live in this society where like we've seen a lot of great works, and we think that this was like this person's first thing that they did, and it just blew up. It was just this amazing project. Like Quentin Tarantino had Pulp Fiction. It was just this, like, but there's so much other stuff he had to get that. But
Mm-hmm.
now content has moved into like, it's a mass consumption now. So it's just kind of like you got to keep going and just build your portfolio. You're going to get better over time anyway. So you have to start somewhere, but if you never start, then you never have anything. But that's also why you have to be careful of like trying to go viral. Going viral is probably the worst thing that you could do if you don't have a catalog,
Mm-hmm.
because what else are they going to see? They're going to be like, what's next? And now you're going to put yourself under the pressure of like, I have to recreate this thing. But if you're not used to creating like this, you're going to buckle under it. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As I talk to more and more people, consistency is obviously the most important thing. Like, bar none, for sure. Like, just kind of start putting it out there, and you'll get better. And be patient,
Mm-hmm.
and one day you may just go viral. And I think
Mm-hmm.
also an important thing to keep in mind, people probably put too high pressure on themselves, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
they don't entirely understand kind of I'll say internet culture. Memes are more popular now than they ever have been, and I think a
Mm-hmm.
cornerstone of memes and why they're so popular is shit posts are essentially mainstream now. So if something you're posting, like, you're totally new at this, is rough around the edges, if it's good overall, like the crux of what you're doing works and is funny and is entertaining, even if it's not the best camera quality, sound quality, editing, what have you, people don't necessarily mind. That can actually have its
Mm-hmm.
own appeal if it's a little rough around the edges. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I know my early videos and even later videos, I would kind of embrace that, where I
Yeah.
wasn't trying to be perfect. I was just trying to, it just had to be good enough. Like, okay, this gets the joke across.
Yeah.
This is entertaining, and kind of not worrying about it beyond that.
And it's kind of crazy. This is like probably the wildest analogy, the wildest analogy I will ever use. But like, let's just take porn for instance, right?
Okay.
Porn used to be very high quality and produced. So it was this very unobtainable thing. So you have this disconnection from it. And then you have amateur videos that come, which has more of a relatability, because it's everyday people like you and
Hmm.
me who don't look the best, or like they may have this. and it gravitates towards it. So now we have this thing of social media, which is that it's like that, it's that relatability. It's like, I feel like when the videos aren't too polished, like they're not shot on the best quality, because there's videos out there that, like, I look at it and I'm like, my quality's 10 times better than this. But those views are 10 times bigger than my views on some of these videos. But I think it's that it has that relatability. It's that, like, every girl next door kind of feel to it. It has that, so you hone in and relate to it more. I think now content has to be relatable, as opposed to like sending a message or like being this high quality produced thing. Like, high quality stuff is still accepted, but the stuff that doesn't have, there's no mic, you know what I'm saying? Or, it's just the camera mic, as opposed to like actual lavaliers and all this other stuff. You know what I'm saying? Those videos, they do tremendously well. But I think it's because of that. It's just more relatable because you feel like you can do it too.
Mm-hmm.
So you're just bringing people in. So
Yeah, and
hopefully that analogy works.
yeah, no, I love that analogy. It is perfect and super true. Like the relatability aspect, whether it's YouTube or porn or whatever. I like now more than ever, it feels like the wall between creator and audience is getting thinner and thinner.
Mm-hmm.
Before social media and YouTube went mainstream like this, there was such a barrier between celebrities and the people who watched them. Whereas
Yep.
now, I think people are really embracing the fact that barrier is getting thinner and thinner. And
Yeah.
part of that comes with just if the video's a little grainy, if it's a little rough around the edges, it doesn't matter because there's an understanding that you're a real person and they're not expecting
Mm-hmm.
Hollywood. They're not expecting
Yeah.
this to be filmed on a $9,000 camera or anything close to that. Like filming on an
Yep.
iPhone with an iPhone mic is totally acceptable.
Yep.
And you can have a legitimate business built on an iPhone. And
Yep.
that is cool. Not only is that cool, but I think people they're into that idea. I guess it's kind of an
Mm-hmm.
underdog story in a way, like I could only afford an iPhone, but here
Yeah.
I am being successful. People are into that. Like embrace it.
Yep. 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 I love it. Even it's still crazy to me that, like, little kid, but when I meet little kids and they like, oh my god, you're a YouTuber, like, it's like the most, like, you just said that, like, you were Michael Jackson to them.
Hmm.
It is the craziest thing to me. Like, being a YouTuber is like held so high in our society right now, like among the younger generations. But it's just crazy. I say that to say it's just so crazy how, like, things have, like, changed. Like the YouTubers are now the new celebrities. Like, I've seen videos where, like, these YouTubers are getting mobbed at, like, the mall, and, like, like, there's a mass people that are, like, following them, and a lot of them shot on their cell phones. It's like, just day after day, they just literally added value to these other people's lives, and it has just been ingrained in them. Like, they've grown with these people, so you feel like you know them, and it's that relatability, and it's just not too much of like, oh, this is like Hollywood and faked and staged, and this. It's like, no, this is like a real thing. It's that reality.
Hmm. Yeah, reality seems to be key these days. I think, especially now, like, I don't know, not to get too societal or whatever, but with COVID and all the crazy large scale events happening, I think there's been like a sort of distrust or disillusionment in just sort of things in general. So if you can just kind
Mm-hmm.
of be your real self, you therefore have kind of broken that disillusionment, and people get they're attracted to that. It's
Mm-hmm.
more appealing now than it has ever been by far, and I think that's only going to be more true as we go more into the future. Maybe the tides will shift one day, and the kind of high quality Hollywood-esque content is going to be king. But I think that won't be for at least another decade or two or three.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now we're really living in the age of just being yourself and kind of cultivating yourself as somebody worthy of having a following. And I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of that comes from like interpersonal work and like trying to live a balanced, good life on your own instead of trying to, I guess, feed this sort of fake celebrity image, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. For sure. For sure.
And yeah, like, so overall, I like to ask people this question: how has YouTube affected your life? Like, what does the before and after snap shot look like to you? The reason I ask is, like, people have YouTube dreams. Like, you have 89 million views on your channel. I think having that amount of exposure, it can change how you feel about yourself and your life. Yeah, what's the before and after look like for you?
Um, bef- After, it looks like freedom. YouTube has definitely created me freedom. Before, um, it's created stress. After, it's also created stress, but it's just different stress. Like, because once, like, before, before I really took off and was self-sustaining and making money, it was like figuring this thing out. How do I get out of my job and figure this thing out? How do I, like, am I on the right path? Or, like, how do I get to the next level? But also, when I started in YouTube, YouTubers didn't talk about money like that. So money was the thing of, like, the last, like, 4 years that we've been starting to hear about this thing. But, like, it was very hard for me to even understand where I was going in YouTube when I first started. Like, I didn't know what I was shooting at. I was just like, I'm just shooting videos because I like shooting videos. I don't know where this is going to take me. I don't know if it's going to end up in me in Hollywood, or if it's going to end up here or there. Like, there was nobody knew. And then you would hear about the few cases like, oh, this person got discovered from there and there. But a lot of these people, then they were in LA. So then you start thinking like, oh, now I have to move to LA. Like, that's the city where all the dreams come true. So it was like that whole stress before. Now it's like stress of, like, being the best, being better. I won't say the best, because I think that's all subjective or perspective, but just being better of a YouTuber, and now getting more money, more this, reaching more people, um, uh, outdoing this video or that video. So the stress just becomes a little different, but it's also now a job for me too. Whereas before it was a hobby, like I can come and go from it. Now it's literally like my 9 to 5. Like, I have to treat it the same way somebody clocks in at the office. If I don't, then, like, I'm ruining my consistency in it, and I'm not trying to strive to be the best. So uh, after it causes you to, like, become a different person that you haven't really recognized, but then you have to pull from all of these things all these skills that you've amassed before this point, and you're like, okay, consistency, discipline, um, just inquiring more knowledge, relationships, like all of this stuff. Like, you have to do this like times 10 over here now to continue to be successful, and to also even educate other people and, like, put them on information and knowledge and stuff like that. So stressful before, stressful after, but it's created me definitely more freedom of just being able to do whatever I want and just, like, think and not have, it's still pressure, but it just allows me to, like, breathe more.
Mm-hmm.
But now that I'm after like a whole nother, like, I've been on this whole Mr. Beast kick, so I'm trying to, like, graduate to that level of, like, wanting to be the best. So now it's literally a job for me. It's like, it's study. All right, hour or two, study content. All right, now cool. Right, now edit. Now do this. Now make this video better than the last one. It's like that now for me, and that's not for all creators. It's just like, I just want to be a top tier creator, and that difference is the work ethic you have. Like, yeah, I'm kind of known. People know me. Yada yada yada. Like, I might get stopped I'm at the point where I get stopped every day now, but, like, I'm just shooting for something different now. So now that pressure is um, more intense, but I have the freedom to allow myself the pressure, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, totally. And I like what you said, there's still stress these days, but it's better stress. It's more freedom. You've chosen the things that you have to deal with day to day,
Hmm.
whereas, before venturing into this, maybe things felt more out of your control, like you were kind of serving somebody else. And that
Hmm.
can be less interesting. Like, for me, certainly working a normal 9 to 5, it was like, I don't want to get out of bed, blah. But
Oh.
it was like a different kind of stress that felt less fulfilling. Whereas
Hmm.
now, if things are really busy, it still, I don't know, it doesn't like hit me, like the negativity doesn't hit me as deeply, I guess is how
Yeah,
I would put it. It's
yeah,
like it kind of bounces off and I'm able to roll with it more because it's more compatible with me.
yeah. And it's like even being in the corporate system and like you're on somebody else's time. Like you're on somebody else's time, their rules, like what they like. You have to do all of these things, but now I just have the freedom to literally make up my own rules. I mean, in what makes sense, of course. Like, but just I don't feel like working today. I can decide to not do that, but that's when the motivation and the dedication has to come in, the discipline. But I can get on an airplane right now if I want and go anywhere, and I can actually shoot a video anywhere and like put this up for my thing. So it just allows me like it just like opens your mind to this whole other world of like you start seeing like other restrictions and stuff, and it just gives you a different type of like literally freedom. That's all I can say.
Hmm.
Freedom.
For real. And so you mentioned like this is your full-time job now. Um, can you tell us a little about the behind the scenes, like how you manage your time? Like you have several different people in your videos. Like, do you have an editor? Can you kind of walk us through the creative process?
So I still edit my own videos. I'll give you a typical day. Typical day. I usually stay in the bed till like 12, 11, 12. Like I don't
Nice.
shoot
Hell yeah.
anything before like 11. I just can't. Like it for some reason I'm like I literally fought for this freedom. Like why would I shoot a video at 9 a.m.? Like I just don't have to. Like so
Hmm. Yep.
I'll wake up, I'll comb through social media in the bed to like 11, 12. Eat something, then I will either if I'm filming that day, I'll start, preparing all the things I need as far as props, actors, go over the script, then we'll come shoot maybe about 3, 4 hours, depending on how many things I'm going to shoot that day. Then I'll transfer footage, edit, eat, and then if I'm filming the next day, it's like prepare for the next day. So it really just depends, but every day I at least make sure I get something done. I have to get something done for my channel, whether it's editing, whether it's writing, whether it's producing meaning like doing some casting, getting locations, getting props, and gathering these things and putting everything together. Or and then some days I'll even have like research days where I like specifically won't do anything. Like Sunday I don't do anything. I don't allow myself to do anything as far as work. So it's just like watch content, research, um, and like I said, you make your own schedule. But I try to keep myself busy at least 8 hours of the day concerning YouTube or video creation in some form or fashion. So
Hmm.
I
Right
hope
on.
that kind of helps.
Yeah, I think that's pretty relatable to a lot of YouTubers. I definitely respect not getting out of bed till like 11. I feel like I kind of fought that desire for me. I think, I don't know, there was a part of me that wanted to be like the still work a 9 to 5 schedule, but doing my own thing. I don't know why, because, half the reason I did this in the first place was so I wouldn't have to abide by the same rules.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you embraced that a bit more than me. From like I still sleep until 11 sometimes, but it's
Hmm.
I don't know. It was like I wish that voice was a little quieter for me. I think maybe
Yeah.
I would be able to roll with my true feelings better if if
Yeah.
I embrace the sleep schedule too. And maybe there's something
Yeah.
about working at night too. Nighttime is sort of like a weird magical time. Maybe you felt
Yeah.
that too.
Yeah. And I've always been a night owl. I've always been the person staying up on the phone, talking all night, all whatever, whatever. So it was more like get stuff done for me at that time. And I've tried the early morning stuff, and I'm not saying it doesn't work, but you start listening to all of these like millionaire pages, like how to be a millionaire. You wake up at 4 a.m. You drink some
Yeah,
coffee.
yeah.
You like, yeah, yeah. Time is just a construct that we allow ourselves to have. Like I can make my own like 4 a.m. and that's 12. at noon. Like as long as I'm taking advantage, if as long as I'm using the same amount of time as they are, I think I can get the same results. So
Yep. Yeah, I totally agree. Like the more you can just roll with how you actually feel on the inside, the better. I've been working on that more recently, and yeah, it seems like you've really figured that part out. Props to you.
yeah, it took a while. It took a while. It takes some. It takes you some years to get to this point, but hey, I'm here.
Yeah, right on. Well, so we're around that 1 hour mark. That sure flew by. So why don't
Oh
you
yeah.
tell people like where they can find you, pitch all your awesome, cool stuff.
Comedian Lonnie. You can search me on everything. Comedian spelled like comedian. If you don't know how to spell, go back to school. Lonnie Lonnie. And or Fenarios Funarios on literally all platforms. I got videos everywhere. On every app that there is, I got a video or a page or something that I am putting out there. But YouTube is my main thing, and that is Fenarios at on YouTube and as well as Facebook as well. Those are my two biggest platforms right now.
Right on. There you go. Definitely check him out. He's hilarious. His stuff is great. Like I binge watched a bunch of his videos, obviously before this, and it was easy. Like I can't believe I got paid to do that. So definitely check him out. You'll love it, enjoy it, and thanks for joining me today, Lonnie.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. All right. And with that, I will see you in the next one.